Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tech Shift F9 podcast with your host, Maurizio. And this is the podcast that talks about career transitions and progression in the age of technology. We do that by interviewing amazing professionals who've gone through interesting career paths. And this week we have Tanya Bendis with us. Tanya joins us from Zagreb, if I'm correct. And she's a marketing strategist at Omnisearch, a B2B startup that looks at performing deep content searches using complex audio, video files, and so very technologically focused. However, Tanya has an incredible background in all sorts of things, including dance, and we'll touch upon that. But first and foremost, I'd like to welcome you on the show, Tanya.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, Maurizio. And hi, everyone. It's nice to be part of this podcast. Yeah, looking forward to the
Fabulous.
question.
Oh yeah, let's dig right into it. So Tanya,
Okay.
I've had a little bit of trouble figuring out where to start with your profile, to be honest. So why don't we take it from your love for ballet? How did that
Yes.
come about? What's it giving you that perhaps you've ported over to your work and life outside of that?
Yeah. So I started dancing at age 3. Like I was walking down the street where I grew up in California, and I fooled my mom and forced her to sign me up for these like ballet classes. So it was just like a little recreational studio. And then from there on out, like that was my entire life. I dreamed ballet. I ran around the house dancing. Yeah, and when I was 11, like I got accepted into San Francisco Ballet, and I like studied there. And then I studied locally where I grew up because it was a little bit farther away. All the way to university where I got my bachelor's degree also in dance. So it's been part of my life as far as I can remember myself, and I still dance today. So I love that. But I think ballet is something very specific in the arts where, you learn that discipline and that you have to show up every single day and work hard no matter what. So good day, bad day, I don't know, sad, happy, whatever it is, you're there for, 6 to 8 hours dancing, and you got to make it work. And yeah, it's just given me so many life skills and soft skills that I've been able to use in my tech career as well.
Oh, totally. One question I have for you on that is, and again, from a complete outsider, someone that knows nothing about ballet and dancing in general, you definitely don't want to see me dancing. But there's a interesting dynamic with the other ballet dancers, I would think. There's definitely a cooperation, a teamwork. Usually ballet is sort of a group thing. But at the same time, I feel there's fierce competition to become the head dancer. I don't know what the term is. So
Yeah.
how does that work, and how, if anything, what did you learn from that experience that you're taking into your professional career?
Yeah, I mean, dance, like any sport, I think is extremely competitive. So even football, it's also you're a team, you're playing as a team, but obviously you have to fight for your own position. So yeah, I just remember in school how competitive it would be, and you would try to be friends with your colleagues, and I have a lot of lifelong friends who I danced with, but there's always like a little bit of tension when the casting comes out, or if somebody, got a better job than another person. That competitiveness really comes to play. I try to, as a person, take that in a like a optimistic, like happy way, like a good version of competitiveness that makes you work harder. That's kind of bled over to me in my other careers, and I try to, inspire other people rather than pushing them down. But there is a lot of that mixed culture in dance that you see in sports as well, because it is, after all, like an athletic, thing.
We'll get back to that, but let's diving into your work at Omnisearch AI. Obviously, technology plays a big role in what you're doing. But you
Yeah.
started really soon after graduating from college with your social media activity. But what
Yeah.
surprises me a little bit is aren't really trained technologists as perhaps some of the other roles that people talk about today, particularly in AI, seem to have. And so I'm curious, how did you plug the gap, if any, or what did you find interesting in tech that perhaps you can get from your other endeavors and interests?
Yeah, well, I was very lucky. So I grew up in the Silicon Valley in California in my middle school, so sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And my high school, we had a very strong computers program. So I'm part of this, IT
Right.
generation that, was such a bubble in the Silicon Valley that, other cities, states in Europe, like people didn't have access to that technology at that time. So we had computers one, two, three, where we literally learned everything from Microsoft Office to filming to frame by frame animation to building websites, HTML, JavaScript, all the Adobe package, audio editing, and at a very like basic level. But YouTube was very popular at that time. And I finally convinced my parents to let me have my first computer in the ninth grade, so first grade of high school. And I just remember spending hours in the office, locked in nights, like just YouTubing every tutorial for Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, all of these apps, and just kind of really being self-taught all the way in high school. So that really worked out for me well because in college I was able to, in America, we obviously pay a lot of money for
Right.
university. So I was able to, design logos, brochures, design websites, build websites, all through that knowledge. So it was never like professionally trained, but it was something I kind of carried with me my whole life. Very lucky my dad worked at Microsoft for 15 years, so
Oh,
I
that
always had
helps.
a yeah, it always helps to he is a back-end developer. But it was always helpful to have, parents that I could ask and, if I got stuck.
Oh,
So,
that's amazing, and also shows a strong entrepreneurial spirit. Um, of course,
mhm.
there's need, I guess, to pay for college tuition and help you get by. But uh, how did that come about? Were you always thinking about doing some side gigs or jobs, or as you were studying, or it just sort of had to happen given, the economic situation that U.S. universities put students through?
Yeah. Well, I had thought about going to school for UX design. And just my like love for ballet like took over at that point. And I said, no, you know what? I want to dance. I'm gonna, 100% focus on this. Like, let's make this happen. And let's, keep those skills as a background. But I really enjoyed my time. Like, I really love motion design. So I see the relationship between dance and motion design, like choreography, like creating movements, creating shapes, and understanding these properties of motion animation. So this is where I kind of found my like love for design. And I just, I missed it when I was just studying dance and I would do it for fun at home or here and there where I'd find a few like side gigs or freelance projects. And I think that kind of just like bled me through my entire life. Like I always had to intertwine both things, otherwise I just didn't feel fulfilled.
Tanya, let's look at your work as a creative. You're working with digital media, and now it's all about artificial intelligence, right? Could be a
Yes.
great tool, could be a threat. And so the
Yep.
question is, how do you personally use AI, and how do you plan on not getting replaced by it?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm not really worried about getting replaced with AI because I think the fundamental thing
Mm.
about not being replaced by AI is, constantly learning. So if my job gets wiped out with AI, well, I'm sure there's something else that I will be able to do in some other way that I can contribute to society. I think, being creative is something that's maybe a little bit more rare. So as long as you're coming up with generating ideas and as long as you're really fully committed to, making a difference and making an effort, you'll still be employable. Robots aren't going to take over the world in my lifetime.
Oh, I
So
agree.
I'm not
But
so worried.
I
Yeah.
agree. And I think being humble enough to recognize that, I guess, something that you're doing now can change and be done differently is crucial to understanding how you can position yourself for the next step. I think perhaps, I mean, you're still very young. I think perhaps some of the older folks find it a little bit harder to go and re-educate themselves and follow, I guess, the new trends or what's happening. But in terms of your own experience, how's that part been? I mean, obviously we're swamped with information. You can get, as you said, you had YouTube tutorials back in high school, and now there's like 10x the amount of information. You can get a little bit lost in all that. So specifically in terms of the creative work you're doing, how are you finding your right sources of knowledge and information and tools?
Yeah, I mean, speaking on that, I think that, you know, the generation that's growing up today with what I had in YouTube, YouTube was so small then. It's exhausting. You know, you get into this like doom scrolling of TikTok, of Instagram, and there's so many great tutorials and great creators that, you know, teach things over TikTok, give you tips and tricks, and then you can go investigate more. But as I said, it's exhausting. So you can spend hours on that app and then you just kind of get brain dead. So I think more of the thing is to focus on what you want to learn. So I set like small goals. For example, like maybe a year ago, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to attack like SEO a little harder. I know about SEO, but I'm not an expert in it. So let me, you know, deep dive and research into that in a few months. And then I feel like I finally get a grasp. Of course, you have to constantly be learning that. But then when I see like a TikTok video about SEO, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's a good tip. And I don't have to do the whole like college course of, you know, learning SEO from the beginning. So I kind of just try to pick things that are relevant to where I am at my career and then jump in and say, okay, today I'm going to work a little bit more on audio editing, and tomorrow I'm going to work a little bit more on video editing, or learn this like one motion animation that I've been struggling with for a while. And that kind of combination of things. It's a constant process of learning. It's just like for me, equivalent to dance. It's a constant process of you need to exercise every single day and eat healthy every single day in order to stay in shape. So it's like this, I need to exercise my mind every single day to be relevant at my job. That's kind of my take on it.
Particularly in the creative field, I think the crucial part is creating a portfolio of evidence of your skills, right? You can say, hey, I know how to do motion editing or video editing, but the reality is you need to show people. And so, uh, how has it been that portfolio creation for you in terms of how you set up your goals and how you actually deliver it to potential clients or potential investors?
Yeah, this I think every designer struggles with. We have so many files on our computer and it's just not getting out there. And I really struggle with that too. But I try to be quite active on LinkedIn and try to be quite current on LinkedIn. So if I finish a project, I'll immediately post it. Or if I'm working on something, I'll share it with like my community. And even if I don't have like a finalized video or finalized report or PDF document, you know, analyzing you know, every project I did, I pick like 5 to 10 projects that I find like I'm really proud of, and I list that into my portfolio. But as I said, it's a struggle, and I think every single person goes through that struggle, and there's no perfect formula for that. You have to take some time and sit down and do it.
Got it. And going back to your dancing, obviously, to do it professionally requires a huge amount of talent, and I'm sure you have that. But I also think that talent isn't enough, right? And you talked about the hard work and the routine, but in terms of holistic look at what a career in competitive dancing could be, what are some of the crucial elements to make that successful?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. And I think now, since a lot more people are dancing, I mean, even my generation, there's just so many people who are doing dance as a recreational activity. So it's really like worming out who wants to do it as a career and who doesn't. And there's nothing wrong with dance education as a child because it teaches you other life skills. But yeah, every company is looking for something specific. So if you're going to fit a mold, and also dance companies are, you know, much harder to get into than getting into an IT company, for an example. There's just so few open positions per year, maybe one open position in 5 or 10 years. Like rarely people go into retirement. We're talking about companies that have around 42 to 64 dancers. You know, they have their roster, and then here and there they're going to hire like 1 or 2 people. Obviously, as a male dancer, it's a little bit easier than female because there's less male dancers.
Mm.
So the demand is, you know, the people who want to get a job in dance is huge. So the talent is, you need so much talent, you need so much hard work, and you need so many connections and someone to open the door for you, because those auditions aren't available to the mass public. So it's a lot of networking. It's a lot of going to competitions so people see your face. A lot of knocking on the doors, emailing people, being persistent. Just like, for example, if you decided, oh, I want to work for NASA, there's a way to get there, and you know you have to follow that path. So yeah, it's kind of try your best and don't be sad if you fail because that's inevitable. It's hard to be a professional dancer, and then you have to decide if it's worth it for you.
You've been able to find a bit of a balance in pursuing all your interests right now,
Yes.
right? I mean, obviously, but you went out and sought that opportunity. You've moved across continents. You linking back to your parents' home country,
Mhm.
and so new culture, new location, but you're still being able to handle essentially two careers. I'm mind blown by that. Can you
Me too.
walk us through that? How did that
Yes.
work? How did that happen? And how are you
Um,
keeping it? How do you keep doing it?
Yeah, like so I really enjoyed the company I worked for in Seattle, dancing, but at just one point in my life I was like, I just don't want to stay in the US. I really wanted to move to Europe. I went around Europe and did a lot of auditions, passed quite a few auditions, but just wasn't like the, right fit for me in that city or something. And then I actually got pneumonia and
Oh
I came
gosh.
back to Zagreb to see my grandma. I was like, okay, I'm gonna chill here for a month as I like heal. And yeah, I just got like the contact phone number for the company that I currently dance for, and I called them up and asked if I could, come take class. But I didn't even ask for an audition, just to see like, if the door could eventually be open, because like the National Ballet here at that time wasn't hosting any auditions, and this is like a musical theater company. And yeah, so the director of the ballet said, sure, come. She let me come for 2 days. I, talked to her after, and she was very happy with, what I presented. And she said the next show that's coming up was Jesus Christ Superstar. It's quite a famous musical. And she said potentially, like, if the choreographer agrees that I could dance in that. And at that point, I was like, I'm just going to risk it. I'm going to try. And 2 months later, we started working on this show. So I got the contract for that show. So it worked out for me really. Luckily, it was right place, right time. But yeah, that kind of jump started my dancing in Croatia, because I don't think I would have moved here if I didn't at least have a place where I could continue to train and to dance, because just the training part is really important to me, just to be able to move every day. And then in parallel, yeah, well, in parallel, finding the IT job. Well, in Croatia, you need health insurance. It's illegal not to have health insurance. And I went to the healthcare office to see if I could register for health insurance. And they said there's like 1,200 euro payment that you have to pay if you're coming from a third country. So USA is a third country for Croatia, non-EU. And yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not about to pay 1,200 euros. So I asked her what are my other options, and she said, okay, you can just find a job within a month, and then your employer like starts your healthcare, and there's no problem. Okay, great, that's my option. So I sent my design portfolio around to a few companies, got a very poorly paid job in an IT company. Didn't know what the salaries in Croatia were at that time. Did not do any research, but I was like over the moon. I was like, got a job, solved my problem, let's do it. My job was to do UX design, to design the mobile app for this company that works kind of like telecommunications and this kind of sector. And yeah, I how would I say nicely, like kicked ass at this job. There was like a lot of incompetent people, and I just, went from just designing apps to designing like full-on video presentations for our like marketing team, organizing events. They just had like a huge hole in marketing at that time. So I ended up organizing events for like 350 people for the 30 years of this company. Getting in contact with artists, with musicians, bands, vendors, catering, everything for these events, designing everything on the screen, making animations behind these videos. It was a very like super dynamic job. So I stayed there for 5 years, and then I was like, okay, it's time to move on. But I was very lucky because the director of this company loves the arts. So it was perfect that I was able to like sneak out from work to, go dance. And then in all of my free time, literally all my free time, work at this job and do my best at it. So I think it was a kind of a win-win situation for both of us. They got somebody who was really motivated and committed, and also I got to dance whenever I felt like it. But it's definitely a struggle to change jobs. I have to say that. Every time I go for an interview for maybe a position that could be interesting to me in IT, it's definitely like it would be easier to get those positions if I didn't have this like schedule issue.
Of course.
So I'm very happy now, like with Omnisearch, since it's a startup, I was able to, both agree. We work a lot with US clients, so it's more in the evenings. So I was able to like work it out with my schedule and just kind of give them both benefits of like what I can do for them and also what they can do for me. Yeah.
Fantastic. And let's talk about Omnisearch a little bit. My impression is that your role seems to be moving into marketing, a little bit away from just UX design. And so that's a whole different ball game. And how
Yeah.
are you getting to grips with that?
Yes. So actually, I lead the design team, so both the UX and the web designers. That's the first assignment that I had when I came in was let's do a redesign of the product, let's make it user friendly. So that was kind of like, first 3 months, like power through that. I also have two marketing associates now who work underneath me. So I'm a little bit more hands-on with them now because they're newer, and getting into that little whole scope. And then with the CEO and CTO, we're doing a lot of strategy planning. We have our sales team in the US, so calls with them, working with them to see where we can open different industries, who we can help. So it's a lot. It's a lot of different things, and every single day is different. But yeah, the marketing for me is professionally something new, but something that comes very naturally to me. I do spend a lot of time on social media. I enjoy social media, so I feel like, my generation of people also just are a little bit more tech savvy, so it's a little bit easier to jump into marketing. But before taking this role, like within the first 2 months, I made sure to, grab a few courses on Udemy and go through some, strict like analytical parts of it. Yeah.
I have the impression talking to you that you're the sort of person that looks at the challenge and just takes it on without worrying too much about stuff, which is great. And but my question comes to you as to have you formulated a thought as to how you want to take all the different parts of your career, all the different learnings that you've had over these few years in the US and in Europe into a next step? What would that look
Mhm.
like for you?
Yeah, I've thought about this. So yeah, because the more like well-rounded a person can go, like the more, entrepreneurial it'll be because you can oversee different parts of things. Obviously, like the technical side, I would leave to a more technical person. But I kind of came to the conclusion that I don't like being the CEO. I don't like being at the
Mhm.
top of things. I really love to like lift other people up. So when someone comes to me with a good idea, good motivation, good drive, like I'm attracted to work with that kind of person and kind of make their dreams come true because I was always very lucky to have my dream of dancing come true. So for me, it's like I'm excited to help someone, like propel their life and like achieve something that they weren't able to achieve before, or they're maybe missing a few things. So kind of opening doors for other people. I don't know what that in the end will lead to. I have a few passion projects I work for that I, try to, kind of arts management, stuff like that, where I try to open doors for people to make that a possibility for them. So maybe that could be a future career choice. But yeah, I don't know. Helping others is like where I'm at right now, and I kind of look forward to doing that hopefully until I retire, maybe for the rest of my life.
Well, you're a little bit far away from it, but
Yeah.
something else that strikes me is that creativity seems to be a core thread in your life and your career so far. You've gone from
Yeah.
multimedia, social media, dancing, you ran a film festival. And
Uh,
for someone like me who has zero creativity in him, what sparks your creative juices? Where do you find inspiration? And particularly for people that work in your field, what advice would you give them for success?
Yeah, I would definitely say when you're tired and when things are not going your way, just take a nap and everything's going to be better. My mom always said that to me. When you're hungry, when you're tired, things are not going to go well. So get some food in you, take a nice nap, go on a walk, and things will come more creatively. For me, like every day is creative. I just, wake up in the morning, I'm just like see things in a very creative way. I do a lot of problem solving, and I think problem solving is also very creative kind of like activity. Yeah, I've never like not been inspired unless I'm exhausted. So that's my first recommendation. And also, if you're not a creative person, I think that's okay. Like, not every single person can think of something new every day, and far from it. Even music today, paintings today, architecture today, it's all copying other forms and combining and meshing other forms. So I think going in the future, it's 2024. We've had, thousands and thousands of years behind us. It's very hard to think of something new. So just kind of be true to yourself and just try to do what you can, do your best at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think exposure to different things is what really helps people get lateral thinking going and come up with ideas and find solutions to problems. But you in particular seem to have the ability to connect with very different types of people. You have the
Yeah.
artists, the dancers, the social media folks, the IT people that you work with, the tech guys that you work with, I mean, tech people in general.
I think
How
this
do you
like
do that?
surrounding yourself with different minds, because as you said, like IT mind, like my programmers and my friends from the film festival, or my dance friends, like this is a different brain completely. And I don't mix my friend groups because I know they wouldn't get along, or my colleagues. Like, very rarely do I like connect people unless they have to for some like work thing, because I just know like I can vibe with everyone, but not necessarily everyone working together. It's like, just for me, that's kind of inspirational in a way. Like, I surround myself with so many different types of people, so I can kind of have this empathy to see how would this person react to my idea versus how would the artistic person react to my idea. And maybe that helps with the creativity. I don't know. It's kind of just like my life has turned out that way, but probably helps.
And Tanya, professionally, have there been unexpected developments in your career path or things that put you off what you thought was the right road to go through? And how did you handle that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. When I was working my first job in Croatia, I did not expect to work in marketing. So I was really like adamant, I'm only working in design. I don't want to join the marketing team. And we had a whole like manager shift, and the whole design team got thrown under the marketing team instead of the tech. Before, we were with the tech people, doing UX design specifically. And I was not happy about that. I was like, what am I going to do in marketing? I don't want to do this. I don't want to be cold calling people. This is not me. But I guess kind of being forced into that made me find like a path of marketing that I enjoy more, and just kind of building awareness of everything that marketing is, and not just, sitting on a phone and calling random people. So it kind of threw like a whirlball at me. Having good mentors too. I have a really good mentor who's well, now he's running a company, but he's coming from the marketing sector, and just trying to understand like what he does to be successful, and then kind of implanting that onto my career and my position now, and seeing like, okay, these are the steps to get to that kind of place where he's at now. Yeah.
And I guess maybe on a more personal note, if you don't mind, Tanya, how's it been reconnected with your Croatian heritage?
Oh, it's been great. Yeah, that's something I think I've wanted my like whole life at different phases. Like, it's been like an on and off thing. Sometimes I felt really connected, sometimes I felt really distant. It's hard to be like a first generation Croatian American. My parents moved 2 years before I was born. So there was very like I was fresh off the boat. Yeah, it's just an experience that I am so happy and so lucky that I was able to experience. It's something that I truly wanted, and no one like pushed me into it. I feel like it's one of the few things that I want, because I think with any job you're always like driven a little bit, like salary, career expectations, family expectations, all of these things. But this was like against the expectations of everyone. Everyone is like, why are you not staying in the US? This is the land of prosperity and capitalism, and everyone wants to move to the US. Everyone asks me, why did you move to Croatia? But for me, it's just home, and I feel so safe and so at home here, and it's just, it clicked. It's like the puzzle piece that was missing in my life. So I don't know. Don't regret it. So happy I made that, dive. Wish I did it earlier, but I think the experience that I had working for 5 years in the US was very crucial to my experience here. So it kind of worked. I'm happy I did it.
Totally. And what I really admire is the fact that not only you've made that passion change that you were looking for, but you've been able to achieve your sports or dance career. You've managed to achieve progression in your work career, your professional career. I mean, it's sort of you're hitting all the marks that you seem to be setting for yourself. That's very inspirational. So thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, thank
Yeah, Tanya, it's been wonderful talking to you. Really appreciate your time and your insights. I hope to get you back on the podcast at some point for an update. And
Sounds good.
in the meantime, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maritza, for having me. And yeah, it was great to speak on the podcast. And who knows where I'll be in a couple of years. We can chat again and see how things are going.
That'd be wonderful.
Perfect.
Well, folks, that's all for this week. Stay cool, stay positive,